What a beautiful day. Thank you for having me here. When I was asked to speak with you all today, I realized that it was impossible to cover everything that Druidry is in the short time that I have with you today. And oftentimes when we're asked to speak, we're asked to tell you how we are different from the congregation that we're talking to, but I really prefer to talk about how we are similar. I like to talk about what we share in common rather than what divides us. So to begin, I want to talk about one of the basic values of Druidry that we share in common, and that's the virtue of hospitality. The word hospitality sometimes conjures up images of warm, comfy beds, free local calls and HBO. And while these things are nice, they're not hospitality, they're tourism. The word hospitality comes from a Proto-Indo-European root word, gosti, which actually means both guest and host, and refers to the reciprocal relationship between one or more beings. Hospitality, then, true hospitality, is a connection between beings, and not just any connection. It's an emotionally powerful one. It touches something very deep within us, a profound human longing to be accepted, to be loved, to feel safe, to be valued, to be respected, and to belong. Druids believe that hospitality is the very basis upon which the universal laws are founded. Connection with what we deem is holy is called the gosti relationship. And excellent hosts are praised for their skills. In the good old days, there were no inns. Folks relied on the hospitality of strangers to stay safe on the roads, just as in the story I mentioned earlier with the children. It was expected if you knocked on a stranger's door that they would offer you hospitality. And one day someone would come to your door and you would do that for them in return. It was understood that certain things were expected of a host. It was extended even to the stranger, for he may be a good god, or an ancestor being, or a nature spirit in disguise, testing our hospitality. The world's great religions have long affirmed a link between religion and hospitality. Both Hebrew and Christian scriptures admonish their followers to welcome the stranger as a guest. Hebrew scriptures recalling the oppression of the children of Israel suffered as foreigners teach us to love the stranger, the outsider. The book of Leviticus instructs the people that you shall love the alien as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. The Buddhist tradition arrives at a similar place by a different road. In some ways, the Buddhist perspective is the most radical, by saying that there is no such thing as the individual. Basically, we are profoundly connected by history, culture, biology, and our independence, that the very notion of a separate individual is false. Hospitality, true hospitality, is not just an obligation. It's not just a duty. True hospitality is a spiritual practice. like meditation or prayer, hospitality connects us with a deeper truth and compassion that transcends ourselves. That our sense of isolation and individualism is an illusion that cuts us off from what is true, what is loving, and what is sacred in our lives. The illusion of separateness from one another. Neither is hospitality something to be proclaimed. It must be lived. Hospitality is both a spiritual discipline and an expression of spiritual health. If you are feeling angry, hurt, or unloved, you cannot offer a warm welcome to someone else. Conversely, if you are at peace and filled with joy and awareness of those around you, you are full of compassion in your heart, and hospitality will flow inevitably from the depths of your being. What is true of an individual is also true of a community. A church with people that do not genuinely love one another is not likely to exude warmth or hospitality. A congregation that is insular or disconnected from its community cannot offer spiritual hospitality, because hospitality is love in action. Rather than something mystical or supernatural, I have found that what is holy is most often found within the practices of hospitality. Making room for others, making room in our hearts and making room in our church for the stranger with us, around us, and within us. It's odd to me that at this season of the year, when we are moving towards the winter solstice, just recently passed, the longest night of the year, that our frenetic activities actually speed up. It seems like a time when we should be in repose. Some of that activity is welcome. Some of us may actually enjoy trips to the mall, finding and making the right presents, composing Christmas or solstice letters, lighting Hanukkah candles against the darkness. And at the same time, I've noticed that this time of the year is a time when relationships become strained, when families become stressed, when relationships fray a little bit more, when the dread of staying with or visiting families arises, when persons struggling with a variety of mental health concerns start to have a little bit more trouble. It can be a wonderful time, a time of magic and lights and music and memories, or it can be painful and frustrating and exhausting. And we may bring our best selves to the family door only to realize that there is really no room for us at the inn. Or we may be forced to deal with persons who are continually knocking at our door unbidden, bringing with them their crises, their drama, their poverty, their needs, their demands on our time, our energy, our money, our food. How do we deal with people who cannot give us anything in return? How do we make room for other people even when they come to us unbidden? When we speak of hospitality, we are always addressing issues of inclusion versus exclusion. Our entire culture excludes many people. If you're in a wheelchair, for example, you're excluded because there are places that you can't go. If you're very young or very old, you're excluded. Women are excluded from some things, as are people of certain cultures and certain ethnicities, and those who practice various different religions of minority faith. Encountering those who are different from ourselves is important because it stretches us. It dislocates the stiffness and opens us up to new possibilities. When we create a life surrounded by people just like ourselves, it's a very narrow life. We are not challenged by such a life. A spirituality centered in such a life can drift into complacency. It's a kind of life that allows us to settle for easy answers based solely on personal experiences. Hospitality has an inescapable moral dimension to it. It's not mere social grace. It is a spiritual and ethical issue. It's an issue involving what it means to be human. But we must also take the spiritual practice of hospitality beyond the safety of our own religious communities. Our practice must extend to opening our hearts to the strangers throughout our lives. The real challenge for us, the spiritual heavy lifting, comes when we encounter people who appear to be different from ourselves. People who we perceive as different test our spiritual development and help us develop spiritually. We need to practice openness to people who make us uncomfortable, people who come from a different ethnic group, people who are a lot older or a lot younger, as we were just saying in the previous litany, people who are gay or straight or conservative, people who believe crazy things, people who believe logical things. The stranger among us. When we welcome what is uncomfortable, we grow. The best reason to reach out isn't just to help another person, to make ourselves feel whole, or to be more spiritual, or to feel good. Reaching out frees us from the prison of ourselves. Reaching out with love frees us from individualism. With love comes understanding. With understanding comes love. Ultimately, love and understanding are one. Hospitality is compassion, love, understanding, and the freedom from the illusion of separateness. And it's knowing that you are never, ever alone. And you'll never be alone again, because we are all one.